Okay, so this week we're doing roadworthiness and safety of lorries and trailers, loading and traveling horses, and also what you need to take with you to an event. So for roadworthiness and safety, what do I mean by that?
Traveling in a box or lorry.
Yeah. And what do I mean by the roadworthiness of that vehicle? So your lorry or your car and trailer.
Ground
If
floor.
Yeah, what was that, Gabriel?
If it's safe to go on the road and be driven around.
Yeah. And why, what are the reasons you need to make sure it's safe?
So that your horse doesn't put a foot through the floor.
Yeah, so a horse doesn't injure itself. Why else?
So you don't injure anyone else?
Yeah, because you're in a vehicle on the road with other people. If your brakes don't work, then you're likely to cause an accident, which may cause injury to other people. So really important that your vehicle is roadworthy and safe for you, your horses, and everyone else. So does anyone know what tests are done on your horse box or car and trailer each year?
MOTs?
Yep, so what's an MOT?
Don't
worry about the actual.
It's like where they basically just check up and everything, so like all the lights are working, the engine, like the tyres, everything.
Yeah, they check up on everything, they make sure the brakes are working, everything like that. And how often do they do that?
Once a year?
Yeah, once a year. Does anyone know the other people that will check, in particular, your horse box and potentially your trailer? So a government agency called VOSA, which is a vehicle standard agency, carries out a test every year on your horse box to make sure it meets the minimum road safety and environmental standards. And that's something to consider. It's not just about safety, it's also about environmental side of things. So because they're big vehicles, particularly your horse box, they need to make sure that it's not pumping out a ridiculous amount of emissions into the air. So you obviously don't want to fail either of these tests. So what are you going to do throughout the year to maintain and look after your vehicle?
Like regular checkups on it. Like if something goes wrong, just take it immediately.
Yeah, if there's a problem, get it fixed. Yeah.
Be careful with it.
Yeah. So other things to think of is, as you say, be careful with it. Look after it, so maintenance. So making sure you clean it properly every time you use it. It's not left damp or anything like that. It's not left with horse wee on the floor. All of these things, keep them clean. Make sure things get oiled if they need to be oiled. And also use it regularly. So if you don't go out regularly, and so therefore your horse box or your trailer doesn't get used much, it's not good for the engine. It's not good for any part of the vehicle to be only used occasionally. So even if you just turn it on, drive it 5 minutes down the road and back once a month, that's better than it just sitting at the yard for 6 months and then going out. So as well as your 2 annual checks, VOSA, which is the government agency, can also do random roadside checks. So that we completely random. They might just pull you over and do a check. They'll check the paperwork that you have on board, and they'll also check to make sure it's safe. So because of this, we talk about your walk around checks. Who knows what I mean by walk around checks?
Like so you don't go into too much detail, you just like
so it's before every single time you are going to travel, you do your walk around checks. So minimum safety things. What is it that I need to know is safe before I put myself and my horse in this vehicle?
To make sure the lights work, because that can be like a security hazard. If like you're on a roundabout or something like that, there's a high chance of like a crash or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. So lights, indicators, brakes, headlights. And yeah, let's move on to the walk around checks. So yeah, and you'll need someone else there to check your brakes, but your indicators you can switch on and look. And thinking about that, what do you need to check with your trailer if you're thinking about lights?
That like if it's a trailer, then it all connects up properly so that you don't find yourself last minute with the lights that don't connect, and that then becomes a security hazard again.
Yeah, definitely. So make sure that the lights work on your trailer and they're connected correctly with your car. What else are you gonna be checking on your walk around?
That the doors are still on the hinges and won't come off mid-journey.
Yeah, so your doors are secure, and all the fastenings are secure, so they're not gonna come off or they're not gonna fly open. And that's the same with your ramp, that your ramp fastens securely. It's not worth the risk of your ramp falling down or a door flying open mid-journey. So yeah, check all of those things. What else are you gonna be checking?
Your tires, that they still have tread depth in them.
Yep, so what do you mean by tread depth?
Like they have those creases in and they haven't like smoothed down so you can still brake properly.
Yeah, good. So there's still got grip. Does anyone know what the absolute minimum tread depth is?
1.6 millimeters.
You've been doing your driving test.
I just failed my theory, yeah.
Yeah, so 1.6 millimeters, absolute minimum, because of grip. What was that?
So that none of them are flat or have like a thorn or a nail or anything that could deflate them halfway through.
Yeah, and thinking of that, you want to also check just general tire pressure. So you know that they are all pumped up to the same amount. Anything else with the tires or wheels you might be checking?
I don't know what exactly they are, but it's like the little cogs that keep the wheels on. I think there's 6 of them. That none of those are loose, because that could mean potentially your wheel coming off the car, van, whatever you're using.
Yeah, so the nuts are all tight. So the way to test them is you can get something metal, tap them against all of them. It should make the same noise. If one makes a different noise, it's probably loose. What else are you gonna be checking with your tires? Anything else?
The tire pressure.
Tire pressure, yeah. Also, they're not bulging, they're not cracked, anything like that. They're not in good condition. Tires are quite important.
Are they legal?
Pardon?
Aren't like some like not legal?
Yeah, so check that they're all road legal. You've not got a spare tire on there because that's not road legal unless you're going to the garage to get it fixed. So as you say, check they're all road legal. Yeah. Okay, what else are you gonna be checking on your walk around?
It's like damage to the not the armor, but like the kind of the outside of the car.
Yeah,
just
so the body condition,
Yeah.
car, trailer, or lorry. Why is that important? Why could that be a safety hazard?
I don't know, maybe if it's like a big dent inwards, then it'll be uncomfortable for your horse.
It's more the effects that a dent or something like that might have. So you might have a dent that then means the door doesn't correctly close, or the door won't lock, or the dent that means something's come dislodged in the horse box and there's a sharp edge, something like that.
The balance and the weight of the trailer, could it make like this kind of thing, the trailer unbalanced and make it
and that's again something you need to look at, is the balance and the levelness of your trailer or your lorry, and that could be down to suspension, could be down to tire pressure, or it could be down to something like that. And then thinking about body condition, you've also got to check any windows aren't severely cracked or about to crack, because obviously if they broke while you're driving, that's a big risk. What else are you going to be doing in your walk around check?
Well, if you have like a trailer, then you're going to check all of the equipment that's used to attach to the car, in case any of that is faulty or could kind of break soon and be an issue if you're stranded somewhere or something like that.
Yeah, and you're going to check that it's correctly connected up. check all those things. Check the jockey wheel is secure, and nothing's going to be dragging along the floor. Also check that you've taken the trailer brake off if you're about to travel. What else are you going to be checking?
The locks, like that secure the ramps on, like up into the lorry, because if one of them came undone, that wouldn't be very good.
Yeah, definitely. So check that the ramp's going to stay secure. What else?
You want to check like your oil, like fuel, and like your sort of oil and fuel levels before you go, so that you don't run out of fuel halfway there.
Yeah, definitely. And it's more significant for if you've got a horse on board than just driving your car. Obviously, it's something you should always check, but in particular if you're in a horse box or horse and trailer, because if you break down on the motorway in a horse box or a trailer scene than in a car, because they will probably have to close the motorway for the safety of the horses. So make sure you've got enough fuel. Also important, particularly in a horse box, because you need to plan where you then refuel if you didn't have enough, because some fuel stations won't be high enough or won't have enough space for lorries. So worth considering that. What else are you gonna be?
We got stranded on a motorway because we ran out of like fuel, because the fuel gauge was broken. So we could actually tell, and we had Bambi in the back, and we managed to like pull over into like part of the motorway, and he stayed there for like 3 hours.
Oh, bless him.
He was actually okay, but it was quite funny. Really, but it isn't looking back at it.
Yeah. And that actually brings you on to a good point. You should check that all of your dials are working. So your fuel gauge, your speedometer, everything like that is working. What else are you going to be checking? So you're going to check that all of the reflectors are still on the car, trailer, lorry. So the little reflective things. You're going to be checking the mirrors are in good condition, they're clear and you can see through them, and they're at the right height or angle if you're the driver. You're going to be checking that the number plate matches the car and the trailer. Illegal if it doesn't. And another thing you're going to be considering is the weight. What do I mean by the weight?
Well, some like trailers or vans will only support a certain amount of weight, and you have to take into account how much the trailer and van already weigh to know if you can travel like 1, 2, or 3 horses, or if it's a pony or something like that, because otherwise it's illegal.
Yeah. So your vehicle, whether it be a trailer or a lorry, will have a maximum weight that it can carry. And what you have to consider, it's not just the weight of the horses, it's also the people, it's the water you take with you, it's the fuel you put into the tank, it's the tack you take. It all adds up quite quickly. So worth considering, particularly if you've got a trailer, you need to not only think about how much the trailer can carry, but how much the car can pull. What are the dangers of putting too much weight on a trailer or a lorry?
Bad handling and stopping differences.
Yeah, bad handling, bad brakes, makes it unsafe to use. So that's most of the general things. Now, what are you going to be checking for in particular now, thinking about putting your horse on board?
Well, like the condition of the trailer or the van, say like to start off the ramp or the step up and the floorboards, for example, because that's going to bear all of the weight. So if it's faulty or rotten or moldy, that can be an issue.
Good. And how are you going to check that? Anyone know how you check the condition of the floor or the ramp?
Look underneath it.
Yep. So you'll have to get back the rubber or the fabric that's on it. And you then want something like a hoof pick, and you want to tap around the place, make sure it all sounds the same. There's no soft spots or spots that don't sound the same, because they will be weaker. Really important to always check, because it might look fine, but it might be completely rotten. I actually once had a horse that we put in the trailer, and he was completely freaking out. He had always traveled well, but was completely freaking out. We started driving. He was literally throwing himself around. When we pulled over and took him out, the floor had started giving way and there was bits of wood chip from where he had been thrashing about. So always check, because it might be a brand new vehicle, you might have no idea, and it might be rotten. How are you going to stop it rotting?
Put creosote on it if it's wood.
Yeah. What else?
Also, like making sure every time your horse you travel, that you clean out like the pee and the poo, because the pee, if it's left there, it can rot the floorboards.
Yeah, so make sure you wash it out is the most important thing. Give it a proper good spray down and a good clean. Okay, so we've got floor condition, ramp condition. What else for the horses do we need to check?
Ventilation. You want like decent windows in there that preferably have some sort of bars over them, so they can't like stick their whole nose out, but that they give enough air into the lorry that they can, yeah.
Yep, good. So good ventilation. And you want windows that you close if needed, but how would you have them if you're traveling? Open, yeah. So the more ventilation, the better. However, thinking about that, you need to consider where you might be getting drafts from, and therefore the temperature it's going to be when they're traveling. Anything else you're going to be thinking about with the horse area?
Something secure to climb up to.
Yep. You've got to make sure you've got some baler twine in there. What was that?
Have somewhere to put hay and or haylage for them to have when they're on the journey.
Yeah, so you consider how safely your hay or haylage is tied up, or how that is.
Or like baler twine before you tie them up.
Baler twine, good.
Or like you can get these like bungee things.
Yeah.
Which are quite safe.
Perfect. Anything else?
Want to check the partitions are like high enough and also like wide enough for the horses that you've got to put in.
Good. And also the partitions are in good condition, that they will secure well, that they're not rotting, they're not falling apart. What partitions do you guys have? What are they made of?
Also like
ones with like a steel frame, like a plastic bit in the middle with the sort of rubber flap at the bottom, and then it has like a pad with sort of foam that sort of rests where they can lean against it and not like hurt themselves, kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of a half and half one. Does anyone have a full wooden or like the hardened plastic material partition? No. So old-fashioned vehicles tended to have them a bit more. So the whole thing, instead of being half wood or half plastic and half rubber, it was all the wood. Why have people moved away from that?
I feel like the wood rots quite easily, and also if like a horse leans against it, then it can snap.
Yeah, so the wood rots. It's less likely to snap. It's more the risk that a horse can get its foot through it, because it will have a steel frame to stop it snapping. But there is a chance that if the horse kicks, that it will go through it and it might hurt itself. So the rubber is generally preferred. It's going to stop the impact of a kick without completely preventing the horse. And as you say, they need to be in good condition. When would you ever travel more than one horse without a partition?
If it's a mare or with a foal or something like that.
Yeah, mare and a foal.
If
Any other?
Or if it doesn't like the partitions and it needs like space to spread out, you know.
More than one horse?
Oh wait, no.
Yeah, so more than one horse would only be a mare and a foal. But as you say, some horses will travel a lot better with no partition. What do you have to think about if they've got no partition at all?
Like the jockey door, because obviously you don't have the like bits at the front.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to think about, you're still going to want to tie them up, and you may just need to keep more of an eye on them to make sure they're not trying to turn around or anything. But as you say, some horses will be much more comfortable being able to properly spread out, so that can help them. Okay, another thing to consider is when this isn't quite a walk around check, but once you're ready to go, thinking about in an emergency, are there any quick release pins that mean you could get the partition down or the bar down or something like that if your horse did get stuck while traveling. Just worth knowing, anything like that. Okay, so how are you going, what's your horse going to wear to travel?
Tail bandage.
Yeah.
Head collar.
Yeah.
A leather head collar.
Yeah, why a leather head collar?
Because it's like it breaks easier.
Yeah, so ideally leather, because as you say, it's going to snap if needed.
Also, it's like preferred if they have travel boots.
Yeah.
Obviously, some horses, so mine doesn't travel in travel boots.
Yeah. What can you use instead of travel boots?
Bandages.
Like bandages.
Yeah.
Good.
Good. Okay, so why would a horse be a bad loader?
Bad experiences.
Any reasons?
If it's like a big horse, they might find a trailer or a van quite claustrophobic, so you might like want to open kind of all the windows, all the jockey doors, etc., to make it feel like there's more space and more.
Yep, so might feel, as you say, might feel claustrophobic. Why else might it be a bad traveller or a bad loader?
Could just be naughty.
Yep, naughty, stubborn.
Taking advantage.
Yep, definitely.
It might know where it's going if it's going for like a training or a competition and just like not want to. Like,
yeah, so that's excitement or anxiety. Anything else?
It could just be like a baby or a youngster that's just never done it or
Yeah, one that doesn't really understand. Anything else?
They could be bad because they're like on their own and they usually travel with a companion, so it could...
Yeah, and not only that, but they could be bad if they're a generally nappy horse. They might be bad going away from the others. The only other one, well, there's two other things to consider. If you are driving really fast and not very carefully, they might start being bad travellers. And if they naturally struggle with balance a bit more, they might not be as great at travelling, so they might be more reluctant to load. Okay, so what would you, we're going to talk about long-term and short-term solutions to a bad loader. So let's do long-term solutions. So this isn't, okay, we need to get the horse in the box today because we're going to a competition. This is, you've bought a horse, you're aware it's a bad loader, and you're going to try and train it to be a better loader. What things are you going to be doing?
Like trailer. Can't you put it in like the gateway to their field?
Yeah.
You can put the trailer in the gateway to the field and open up both sides, and then to get through to the field, you put it through the trailer, and then they like associate it with food and all that.
Yeah, definitely. So they associate it with food. They also associate it with it not being a big deal. They just see it as a bridge away from getting from one place to another. It doesn't have to be just to the field. It could be somewhere else that you regularly walk through.
Like if you're trying to, if you start by just doing that and walking it through, and then you kind of bit by bit, you spend like, you just stop it for like 3 seconds, then 10 seconds, and more time, so it just gets comfortable, and you like feed it in the box.
Yep, so feed it in the box. That comes on to another point. So what do you mean by feed it in the box?
Well, if you have like treats with you, or if you like have like a handful of ration or something like that, to kind of associate that with relaxing and nice.
Yeah. Any other ideas with feeding the horse?
Oh, for like routine. Like every evening when you give it its food, just give it in the box. Then they like then associate it, and it's just like the routine.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can make it so that every meal it has stood in the horse box or the trailer. It doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't get its meal until it's in there. And again, as you say, it just starts associating it with a nicer thing. It's not going to be worried, it's going to be thinking about its meal. So that's a really good thing to do. Anything else you can do long term to make them better?
Sort of load them with a companion, so that each time they're sort of like, you put the other one in first and then you follow that horse in, and they're just slightly a bit more encouraged to go in, basically.
Yeah. What type of horse would you use that on? So what we said why horses might be
Baby.
bad loaders. Which ones would you use that for?
Like a youngster.
Yeah.
And like ones with sort of anxiety or anything about competitions and stuff.
Yeah. So I would say, as you say, the danger of using that technique is that the horse may become completely reliant on another horse being in there with him. If it's a horse that has a companion pony that needs a companion pony for anxiety, it's not such a worry. But as you say, really good for youngsters, just for them to understand what it is. Toto mentioned the making it as light and bright as possible in there. Anything else you can do? So it's worth thinking about going on short journeys. So occasionally putting your horse in there and driving 5 minutes down the road and back again. Not necessarily even doing anything, so that it becomes not a big deal to the horse. They don't get excited, they don't get anxious. Equally, people tend to only take their horses out in the lorry for training sessions or for a competition, which might cause your horse stress or anxiety. So again, it might be worth taking your horse somewhere and hacking it home, or taking it to do something that's not going to be stressful, taking it somewhere, taking it off, giving it a graze, loading it back on and taking it home again, which you can just repeat as much as you can. So as another thing that just slowly trains them to not be as worried. Okay, so what about short-term solutions? So that's we need to get the horse in the box today because we've got training later on. What could you do?
You get someone to like stand behind.
Yeah.
Because that like normally encourages them if they're being a bit naughty or something.
Yeah, and they can stand behind with something like a schooling whip, obviously not beating the horse, but they can use the schooling whip for encouragement. What should the person standing behind and the person loading be wearing?
Hat and gloves.
Good, yeah, and anyone that's helping you out should be wearing the same. What else can you do?
If the horse is being kind of really annoying about it, you could use 2 lunge reins to kind of force it in there. So if you start by kind of making a corridor, and if it's really kind of not keen on it, you kind of close in until you're kind of behind its bum, so it has no other way but forward and a bit of pressure from behind.
Yeah, and as you say, you can also then cross them over and push it up with the lunge lines. You just got to be aware that if the horse runs back at you, the person helping needs to be quick enough to make sure the horse doesn't get tangled up in the lunge lines or anything like that. What else might you do?
You could like park your lorry or trailer up against like a fence or a hedge or something, so that they won't just like jump off the side if they're doing that quite regularly. So
yeah, really good. So it is again that channeling them in, particularly if you find out that your horse tends to go one way or the other. Most horses will probably tend to go to the right because you lead from the left, but that's a really good one. It makes them not going to escape. Also doesn't make it feel as trapped because they already feel a little bit trapped, so it doesn't feel like they're going from completely open space into a box. What else might you do?
Use a loading ramp thing.
Good. Does everyone know what a loading ramp is? Yes.
Don't you have like the gates down those are the
Yeah, so basically it's a gentle ramp up into, it's normally wooden sides, they're quite high, and then there's normally a turn or it goes straight on, and without the lorry there's just a step off, but what you do is you'd reverse your lorry or your trailer up to it, you'd lower the ramp onto the step, which means that the ramp is no longer uphill, it's relatively flat or with a slight incline, which makes it easier for the horse. They don't feel like they're having to really properly climb. And it also means there's sides to it. So again, they're channeled in. What else might you do?
You could use some treats to just like entice them to take each step and just give them one each time that they move.
Treats or food. Anything else?
Don't like force the horse in because otherwise the next time they'll be even less likely to go in. But
Yeah,
don't
good.
like shout and scream at it.
Yeah.
Just like encouraging.
Really sorry, a cat has just walked into my house. I'm just going to get it out. Sorry. Give me a moment. Get out.
She needs a dog. Definitely needs a dog. That would solve that one.
Sorry about that.
Archie, where's your puppy? We need your dog there.
Okay, what else might you do?
If you're in like a trailer or even in a lorry as well, you sort of open up the front ramp or like the jockey door so they can kind of see the light on the other side, and it kind of encourages them to walk in a bit better.
Yeah, if you can make it look less like a dark box, they're going to be happier. Also, what you've got on their heads. So a bridle might help with more control. You might use a chiffney. Yeah. That would be quite last resort if you can, because it can be quite harsh. What are the dangers of using a chiffney?
Couldn't like break the jaw.
Yeah, it can break or dislocate the jaw if used incorrectly. So really important that you use that under when you've got someone very knowledgeable there, and also that you try not to use it unless, as I said, last resort. So yeah, you can use a bridle, or you can use training head collars. So you've got those head collars that have a rope across the front that then tightens. You can also use different techniques. Some people will, if the horse stops at the bottom of the ramp, make the horse reverse in a straight line and then walk it forwards again, and keep doing that, because the horse might learn that it's easier to walk forwards than it is to walk backwards. But some of it's about learning what the trick is with that particular horse, and what's needed with that horse. Okay. Just so now your horse is loaded, he's ready to travel. What would you do if you were halfway to wherever you're going and you hear a huge clattering in the back? Let's say your horse is either stuck halfway over the partition, or he's tried to get over the bar in the trailer, or he's stuck on top of the tack lockers. What are you going to do in that situation?
Stop the van.
Yep.
Depending on where you are, like, so if you're, obviously you can't stop in the hard shoulder, can you?
The hard shoulder, I believe you can stop in. I believe.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Am I right there, Alison?
Yes, you can stop if it's an emergency. So it needs to be an emergency. You can't just stop there because you think your horse might have run out of hay and you want to refill their hay net. But if they're crashing around and you think it's an emergency, just bear in mind the implications, though, that if you then discover that they are stuck, if it is a motorway or dual carriage, well, any type of road, including a motorway, they would have to close the motorway to assist you. So if you're near somewhere where you can pull right off, it might be better to pull right off.
Yeah. Cool. So as you say, stop. Then what are you going to do? You're going to hear a huge clattering from the back. What's the first thing you're going to do?
You're going to go like through and have a look.
Before you do that?
Right.
Make sure everything's like parked up, but it's not gonna.
Oh, make sure there's no one coming. Like.
Yep, you're gonna get your hat, because
glove.
A horse stuck over anything is going to, if it's crashing around, it's probably already in a state of panic, and it is going to be higher up than you. It's in a confined box. It poses quite a risk of striking you in the head. So get a hat so that you don't add another drama to the scene. So you got your hat, you've gone round to the back, you've gone in there, the horse is panicking, it's completely stuck. What are you going to do?
Call someone.
Yep, who are you going to call?
A huntsman.
Horrible. Who else might you call first?
The vets.
Anyone else? You might get them out as a secondary.
Someone with another vehicle, with a trailer, lorry.
Yeah. Anyone else before that? How are you going to get your horse out of this situation?
Like
Firemen.
Firemen, yeah. So if your horse is completely stuck, you should be calling the emergency services, partly because they will probably need to close the road for the safety, but also because it's not worth putting yourself in danger, and there being then 2 incidents. They prefer you to call 999, ask for the fire department, or tell the police, and they'll sort it out. But the fire department can then come out. They will be able to, as I say, close the road. They'll be able to cut partitions if needed, or lift the horse out safe. As you say, you may also need a vet, because you may need to sedate the horse. If it's kind of stuck but not panicking, what might you do?
Just get it out yourself.
Try and get it out. Of course, depending on where you are, you may need the road to be closed.
Try and calm it, like talk to it, kind of pat it, stuff like that, if there's nothing else you can do.
Yeah, so calm it down. You may want to think about untying it while you wait, because why might you untie it?
In case it like panics again and then like pulls back and does something.
Yeah, it's one less thing to confine it. If it panics, it might be able to get itself up. It might be able to move itself. But of course, as we've talked about, you then got to consider when you open the ramp, is it going to charge out and cause a scene? So just worth having a plan of what you'd do in that kind of situation. Pretty horrific situation to be in, but definitely need to know what you'd do if that was the situation. Okay, and just to finish, what are you going to be packing in the lorry before you go to a competition, let's say?
Water.
Yeah, plenty of it. Hay, yeah.
Like all the tacks, so saddles, bridles, girths.
Yeah. Would you take any spare tack?
Yeah. So like spare bits. They're like stirrup leathers.
Leathers, definitely, yeah.
Like cheap pieces,
Yeah, might do.
It's like all the bits that are quite prone to break.
Yeah, and also the bits that are very important. So I'd say very important, the most important ones is a spare girth, spare stirrup leathers, and spare reins. If you can have a whole spare bridle in there, great. Obviously not always achievable. Other thing is you always want to travel with a spare head collar and rope. Is if it breaks and you're out, you want to be able to get it home safely. What else are you going to be packing?
First aid kit.
Good. For who?
Women and horses.
Both.
Yeah, both. Good. What else?
Food, horse food for bribery to get back in the trailer.
Yeah, you might need to take some food. If you know your horse is going to be naughty, it's good to take some. Equally, if you're going to quite a difficult competition, or you know you're going to be back late, you might take them some dinner to have there. What else?
Sort of the horse's exercise boots, so like the brushing boots, show jumping boots, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like all the stuff, like
what?
hats and gloves. And
yeah. Hat, glove, hairnet, jacket.
Furs.
One more really, really important thing that's not been mentioned.
Grooming kit.
That is very important. Not the one I was thinking of.
Or like bucket and sponge.
Yeah, also important. Not quite the one I was thinking of.
Maybe a water bucket.
Or like rugs.
Yeah, you might want rugs. What rugs might you want with you?
You want like a waterproof one, like a cooler.
Yeah, depends on the weather. A waterproof sheet's always a good one to have. And as you say, you might want a cooler, potentially ice sheet. What else? There's one more thing that's really important. It's illegal to travel without. Yeah, so the horse's passport. And as I just said, illegal to travel without. Why do you need to travel with your passport?
In case like you get stopped.
Yeah, and if you get stopped, why? What are they going to be checking for in your passport?
Like if it's actually a horse.
If it's what?
If it's actually like your horse.
Yeah, they're going to check for ownership. obviously then when you get someone, they may check for vaccinations, but the legal part of it is if the police stop you, they want to check that the horse in the lorry is the one that you actually own. So passport is really important. It's always worth having a list of a checklist for horse and rider of what you need in the lorry or the trailer, so that every time you go out you can go through it and you know that you've got everything you're going to need. Okay, does anyone have any questions? No? Perfect. Well, that is everything. So I don't know if Alison is back. There she is. I'm just going to say good luck with your B test. You do it. I hope this has all been helpful.